Well, what's up, everybody? It's Chad. We're back again with another episode of Grassy Logic, the second take that we're doing this. Today, I have a really good guest with me, JJ Holmes. Thank you so much for joining me today, JJ.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, man. And you bring a unique perspective into the industry, but I won't, speak for yourself. I'll let you introduce yourself. So go ahead and please, give us the whole spiel of yourself and, what you do.
All right. I'm JJ Holmes. I'm a native of Colorado, transplanted to Arizona, and right before Colorado went legal, and decided to jump in with both feet into the cannabis industry, even though I didn't know anything about it as it relates to consumption. So I've learned I won't use a cuss word on here, but I've learned a lot.
It's the internet. You're okay, JJ.
I'm okay. All right. I've learned a buttload of information that I hadn't had previously. And a lot of it has been great. And having conversations around the cannabis plant has led into the business that I own in Lovington.
Nice. Yeah. And what's the name of your business?
It is called Loving Bud Dispensary, which is, it's a play off where we're located in Lovington, New Mexico, right near the border there. And we also have a farm called LB Farms, which is Loving Bud Farms. And so we do wholesale manufacturing as well as dispensing.
Cool. So you guys do the whole array of things. And being in that area of New Mexico, you kind of have to. Like certain areas like Sunland Park or like Albuquerque and stuff, or even here in Cruces, you can get away with other things. But over there, you kind of have to rely on yourself more than anything, because it's harder to get product down there sometimes, right?
Yeah, it's hard to get anything down there. Yeah. That ranges from getting contractors to do work for you, renting tools. I mean, it's rural and it is challenging, but we are making our way through it for sure.
Yeah. I had one of the girls from JAL on, a few months back, and the same thing. Contractors have she has a hard time getting contractors out there. No problem getting customers, but getting contractors and people to help and do stuff like that, is where you have the hard time in getting product. But for some reason, the customers just find you.
They know where we are. And,
yeah.
As you said, though, it's just everything else, all the other things that you need to function as a business. It's not impossible, but here, living in Arizona and managing there, it's light years different as it relates to being able to get help, I'll call it.
Yeah. And then jumping between both, and being that part of the state is so rural, that's the other challenge too as well. I grew up in a, considered rural area of New Mexico, and, it is hard to get, services and other things into that part. And I don't think that certain hubs of the state actually recognize that a lot of the times, especially Albuquerque and Santa Fe. They don't even realize that's an issue until you bring it up to them. It's like, I can't even get contractors down here. And they're like, what do you mean? It's like, well, it's in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
So that's great that you're able to, figure it out in the end. It's just unfortunate that, it makes it harder. And of course, finding good help these days is hard all around, coming from contractors to employees to, just someone answering your question when it comes to the government. It's hard to, kind of find that help. But when you get it, man, it's game changing. So, I hope that on that front, it's not that bad for over there and everything, because it's just as hard over here, finding all that, the good help and all that stuff. So before I really kick off to your background of the store and everything, I want to jump back and really get to your background of where your cannabis not usage but support really started. When did you really start getting interested in cannabis use? I guess in general for overall health.
Yeah, because I'm a former athlete, so cannabis was taboo for us. Me being a college athlete at the University of Colorado, one of the things they tested us for was cannabis. So we had to stay away from it and stay away from folks that had it, because the old saying of a contact high can give you a contact failed test. So we stayed way far away. And it just we were given all of the negative connotations associated with cannabis, and weed is what we called it. And it took a while. Once I saw that Colorado went legal, my home state, that's when I started doing a bit more research, because it was just such a booming industry. So the more I deep dove into it, it started to shed light on all of the benefits that we never even thought of.
Yeah.
And so most of those benefits I've been able to see occur with a lot of either old teammates or friends of mine that played football or NFL football, to be more specific.
Especially, yeah, for sure. That's
And
a different level.
Oh, it is. It is, because of the injuries they deal with. I mean, you've seen them. They've got mangled hands. Their knees, their hips are bad. I'm fortunate that
Playing with the club because they have a cast.
yeah. And the pain associated with that, and the anxiety and the concussions. I mean, there's so many uses that we found with this cannabis plant that these guys are able to stay away from big pharma and not get addicted to some of the drugs that have been prescribed for them. And I've got some really good friends of mine that we play golf every week, and before they got the cannabis introduced into their system, they weren't playing anything. They were sitting on the couch and, watching the days go by. And so I've really seen how this therapy, I'll call it, of this plant has created really positive attributes for people that are in pain. And now, as we own a dispensary, I see a lot of cancer patients. I see people come from all walks of life that just do not want to deal with the pharmaceutical industry and dealing with what kind of addiction that may cause or the side effects. So I'm really excited about the future of the industry. I just want to make sure that I'm setting my company up to participate in it, because it's a tough process out there right now.
Oh, it is, and it's going to be like that for a while until the federal government figures out. We'll still have a while. We're really going to have a rocky road with all the different laws and different things going on in the other states and stuff. So yeah, it's going to be a while, but I'm glad that you're able to stick around with us and give us that unique perspective, because I'm sure you see other college athletes come through sometimes now. Have you seen any come through your store?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, It's daily. And like I said, it's not just college athletes.
Yes.
It's people with ailments, arthritis, somebody had a surgery. Yeah. And I have a great percentage of my customer base that are elderly. They're 65 and older, and they are using our product. In fact, you feel bad, because if we run out of something that they really need, it is difficult to watch the disappointment in their face, because they're coming in pain. So we've got to get the word out that this isn't about the Cheech and Chong version of cannabis.
Yeah.
It's about maintaining, being able to have a livable lifestyle health-wise, and being able to walk up and down stairs, the little things that you don't think about, getting in and out of cars without pain. Those are things that these folks are struggling with. And listening to their stories, you feel like Superman by just providing them with an alternative that will help them in these areas.
100%, and then I'm glad that you bring that up, because the elderly is the highest users of cannabis within the nation. If you look at the numbers, of the usage, after about 30, 40, it starts to pick up more. And then about 60, 70 is like the highest. And then about in the 80s, it kind of dips down a little bit. And I think that's just because, at that point, they're a little more older, and they're doing other stuff or not really taking anything. So who knows? I could be wrong on that, but the numbers do show that majority of the users are the elderly. The 18 to 20 whatever. It's still there, but it's nothing compared to the 65 to 70-year-olds. They're just they're using it like crazy, and especially these days with the boomers becoming the elderly population more and more. We're starting to see them uptick it a lot. My own parents use cannabis all the time. They're retired now and enjoying life. My dad makes balm for other veterans and stuff like that, because they love balm, man. The balm really works well. I use it myself. I'm sure you do too. Other athletes as well. Huh?
My mom uses it too.
Does she really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Freaked me out.
I think it does freak certain people out when you're not used to your parents, like not using cannabis or something just out of nowhere. It's like, yeah, I use this pop bomb and man, it goes away. So, and I'm sure you run into that a lot, like the people coming in using the creams and stuff like that. Because
that's one of the great things about the industry's innovation is the methods that we're using to introduce it into our systems. You're talking about the bombs, you talk about the gummies, you talk about the vapes, and then just flower. And one of my close to my heart inventions is I want to do it where we use it for cocktails in liquid, and it's already there, but it's not at the level I want to do it at. But getting it in your system has been great for somebody that really isn't crazy about putting smoke in their lungs or drinking it. The gummies where you don't even taste it. It's in your system and you feel the effects, and there's just so many different ways that you can get there.
Yeah, and I love that you brought that up because, we can medicate, without having to smoke. We made smoking the devil in the 80s and 90s, and to be honest, smoking anything isn't good for you. My doctors tell me that all the time. You shouldn't be smoking anything. The way that you should be consuming cannabis is non-combustible, and that's fair. And to be honest, there's going to be a time in our future where smoking is always going to be there. Don't get me wrong. People are always going to smoke cannabis, but the majority usage of cannabis consumption is going to be pulling away from that, I feel, in the future. And it's not going to be reliant on it as much as it is today. Even when you go to the lounge, sometimes it's a little bit too much, to be around that much smoke. And sometimes it's like, man, okay, I kind of get it, but you have the option of the one that I go to in Sunland Park anyway right now. You have the option of getting a mocktail, a drink, or ordering a food, or something else in that. And whenever I go, I get a red beer. They have 0 alcohol beer. I didn't know they did that. I thought all of the near beer that they had was a small percentage, but I guess they have 0%. And so they figured that out, and now they make like red beers, or they can serve you a beer with some cannabis infused in there because they use hash rosin, so it's not just THC. It's like a full spectrum kind of thing, so you get the full effect and everything. So I'm with you on that. Especially with the drinks. Edibles are a huge one. You can put it not just in sweets. You can put it in hot sauce. You can put it in salsa. You can make a whole meal, and infuse the whole meal with cannabis if you'd like. And I've had that before, and it's amazing. When they do that. And don't get me wrong, I slept really well too. But, that's something that is totally doable. And I recommend people go that route instead. Like, why not have breakfast and cannabis at the same time? And you don't have to smoke it. You're ingesting it. And I think it's a beautiful thing to go that route. What is your favorite drink, or what is your kind of go-to drink that you would really want to see for cannabis?
Mine is an easy one, only because, the risk you have drinking out in public is so high these days. When I was in college, there was no such thing as a DUI. They would send you home. But now it is a vodka soda with lime.
Okay.
And there's not a huge amount of flavor in that. That's what I'm saying. If I could simulate that with THC, and have the ability to monitor the percentage of intake, no different than alcohol. Yeah, I would love that because I love alcohol because I like socialized drinking, but I don't want the hangover. I don't want the impairment. I just don't want all that that's associated with it. And you'll get some impairment with THC as well, but my version of impairment is way different than what alcohol provides, at least how it reacts in my body.
100%. I'm with you on that too. Being a veteran and everything, they promoted drinking like crazy. And so it did no benefit to us whatsoever. It made everything worse, actually. The PTSD, staying fit, it made staying fit a lot harder too. Like we hear the stories of veterans like, I used to run 5 miles hungover. I'm like, well, you weren't supposed to. Just because you did and you could doesn't mean that you should, or that it's good for you or whatever. Your body was just resilient at the time and it was able to do that. And, you probably just drank so much, but yeah, I don't want to deal with that either. The hangovers, the way it makes you feel, all that stuff. So I'm with you on that because I've thought of it. I was a bartender for a long time, so I've thought of it. How are we going to mimic like a whiskey, like a whiskey straight? How are we going to do that? And I have a feeling that the industry will figure that out eventually. But in my mind, I'm like, how are we going to accomplish this? And people with your thinking are the ones that are going to do it because you have the people that don't want a lot of flavor, but they want the drink. And that's the reason why we have all these seltzers, popping out everywhere. People want the drink, but not the whole flavor or too much sugar. And I think that's a great point, too, because there's too many edibles out there that are just diabetes waiting to happen. And it's because, and I get it, don't get me wrong, a lot of people are trying to mask the terrible flavor that comes with it sometimes if it's not done correctly or something. But I think there's a little happy medium where we can meet, because I don't mind bitter every now and then. There's a reason why certain people drink certain alcohols and beers is because it has that bitterness or a certain flavor. And I think you can use that as an advantage versus not, when it comes down to it. And Gino's looking at me like, oh, man, I don't know.
If you want lack of flavor, just kind of mix it with sparkling waters because, they have those ones where it's supposed to be like a certain fruit flavor and it tastes like a fruit ran past the can to get the flavor in there. And that's about what it tastes like. Yeah, if you like those muted flavors, sparkling water with a little.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. That's where the alcohol seltzers were coming from.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What were you going to say, JJ? I'm sorry.
What created all these different alcohol drinks was the fact that they were trying to mask what alcohol tastes like.
Good point.
So that was, that was what everything, cranberry juice and whatever vodka. It was all so we didn't taste the alcohol. But then over time, you start to develop the taste for that. Mm-hmm. And I love cognac, but I don't drink it out in public. One, because of the smell. And, you ever get pulled over and you roll down your window, he ain't going to ask you if you had a cognac. You're going to tell him it just comes out of your skin.
It's a particular smell, yeah.
Yeah, and so I don't use it unless I'm at home and I'm not going to be driving anywhere. So I think that if they can take the alcohol out of beer in that process, we can do the same thing with just about every other cocktail that we have and spirit that we use, and then substitute that with a much more healthier, non-sugar based THC.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. It's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of experimentation, but I think we're on the right track. And like I said, people with you with that mindset and that realization that I want this, but how am I going to do it? And, the other mindset, that's a great point. We only want that bitterness is because it's always been there and it's just a part of alcohol. And we've always have tried to mask it in some point. Beer is only 5-10% at most. The most common is like 2%. So it's a very low alcohol. So you're not tasting it that much. It's the other stuff that is in it that you're tasting. And it just became a part of it, and we got used to it. So that's a really good point. And I think that cannabis kind of gets to start out fresh, other than the fact that the flavor that you get sometimes isn't the best. But with nano-emulsification, hash rosin, and stuff like that, just the better extracts getting used for it and not having that flavor, I think that we're on the right track to get to those. As Gino said, muted flavors, but more or less enjoyable experiences when it comes to it, and not so sugary. Because, man, there's times where I have an edible drink and I'm just like, oh, whoa, dude, that's syrup. Yeah. It's like, I need to cut that with something. Put some Sprite in there or something.
And some of the, and we're getting in the weeds with this, but I love talking about it because I'm such a fan of our plant. Mm-hmm. Is how do we get rid of the red eye issue? how do we get rid of the dehydration issue? And it impacts people differently, of course.
Yes.
But that's one of my pet peeves is I don't want to have red eyes when I consume.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get really dry. I love taking gummies at night because it helps me sleep. But then if I wake up in the middle of the night, I am trying to drink a gallon of water. And there's got to be something that we can do to change the chemical balance of that for us.
Yeah, I agree with you. Then with chemistry and science and stuff, I think we could figure it out. And hopefully it's not a chemical solution, because we usually know how that goes. But, maybe it's something, maybe it's a certain cultivar we can, grow and kind of figure out because, we took THC and made it 1,000,000%. We could take a certain compound where maybe that counteracts it and up that a little bit with, selective breeding. So hopefully we can go that route versus, the chemical route. Because I think that's even better, too. It's more natural. And it's less work. You just extract the plant as is, and it's good to go. So I think that's a good point too, and I appreciate the conversation on that because I don't get to talk to a lot of people about cannabis drinks because it's so new. And there's not many people who either know about it or really want it unless you're in an environment like a consumption lounge that offers like a full bar kind of selection when it comes to the drinks. Like in Sunland Park, you can get a margarita, you can get like a daiquiri, you can get the red beer, like I said, or you can get a soda. And just put some cannabis in there if you want. You just a regular, soda water or soda or something. So I think that's great options for people. And once people realize that you have those options, I think it's going to expand even more because you're going to get those people that bring up something. Hey, I want this. And you never even thought about it. Like yourself, you brought up some things to me that I never even thought about. But, they're great points. And you're going to get those customers like, shit. That's a good idea. Why don't we do it that way? So, that's something that I'm really looking forward to seeing too, because the customer tells you what you want. You're just in charge of creating it. And so I'm excited to see, what comes from that. So we'll see what happens. And, I'm excited to see what you do with your drink stuff too. Whatever it is that you may do it, whatever route that you go, be it a lounge or selling it in a store. I'm excited to see it, because I think that is one thing that we're missing is like the cocktailness on the cannabis side. We need like a cocktail bar when it comes to cannabis. I think that's something that's
social. Social. Yeah.
100%. You can bring your friend who doesn't smoke cannabis to them, and they don't want to feel like they're going to smell like cannabis because it's like a cocktail bar kind of feel. There's not going to be any kind of smoke in the air, just drinks, edibles, whatever. It might be something good to try in the future. Who knows? But I love that. This has been a great conversation. But one thing I wanted to ask you, and I want to ask you this for, my audience and everything. What sport did you play in college? And I forgot to ask you that at the beginning of the podcast. We just got on other topics.
Well, my first love was basketball. But I didn't play that in college. I played all through AAU ball and up through high school, took our team to the state basketball tournament. But I was better at football. So I played football for the University of Colorado a long time ago, I'll call it, for Coach Bill McCartney. I don't know if people remember him, but he just passed not too long ago.
Yeah. So
I had a great deal of admiration for him and his program and all the guys I met through that process. I'm still friends with today. So it's Colorado football was in the Colorado football family is still near and dear to my heart.
100%. And my family too. My brother went to UC. He ran cross country and track for UC. I think probably around the same time that you were there. And so my dad's he's from my dad's side's from Colorado. So he's already a Colorado fan as is for most of the college sports anyway. So when it comes to stuff like that, a huge fan. So it's cool to see that and to hear that and everything. He's not as big as like a CSU fan as he is, everyone else, but he holds that one near and dear to his heart, mostly because of my brother. So, so it was cool to hear that. I'm like, oh yeah, cool. My brother went there, and my brother did go to a couple colleges. Huh?
What years did you play?
My brother? JJ, what years did you play? I'm sorry, that was Gino's question.
I was there from 84 to 87.
Okay, definitely not. Yeah. My brother was born in like 85, so.
Yeah, I'm seasoned.
Yeah. Well, you played football when it was a lot more physical.
Football-y.
Yeah, it was a lot more physical back in that day.
We played when the concussion was your bell getting rung, and they asked you how many fingers you had up, and you always said 2.
Yeah.
So all right, get back in there and you're good. So
Yeah, I remember that. And a lot of the penalties that we have today were not a thing back then either.
No.
You know, and it was a lot harder. So yeah, you definitely put your body through a lot of stuff back then and everything, and it shows that you've done a good job to maintain and heal throughout time, because I can tell you're not like in a wheelchair or anything, or like totally broken. So I'm glad to see that you're still walking right and everything, and cannabis has helped you along the way.
I've got a little spiel that I do on Facebook every day as it relates to working out, especially at my age, and obviously I'm a follower of Jesus Christ, so I always put that in there too, and tell everybody to bend their knees and bow their heads and be thankful.
Yeah, 100%. And physical health and mental health, they both go together, and that's one thing that I try to tell people. Cannabis is a tool in your toolbox. There's many other things that we do to help us out in life, and we just pull cannabis out when we need it. And sometimes we pull the pull-up bar when we need it. And
Absolutely.
Some people, they pull the Bible out when they need it. So it's whatever's in your toolbox that helps you out at the end of the day that, is really what should matter. So thank you for that, and I appreciate it. But before we move on to our next topic and everything, I realized we didn't get to talk about your shop as much as I wanted to. So, let's the last few minutes of this section, I really want to talk about your shop. It's located in Lovington, New Mexico. Is it a big shop? Is it a small shop? What kind of theme are you working with over there?
So I keep saying we, but it's really me, and I've got a couple of smaller investors. But when I brought this idea to myself, I'll call it, we wanted to grow, and because that's where it was, seed. You're creating your own inventory, and it just didn't quite work out that way because our location, back to the rural conversation, it was difficult to get that much power that fast. Because we wanted to grow indoors because it's windy. It's windy where we are. So we're getting challenged with these hoop houses we're growing in right now. But we're doing that at the reason is because we can't get the power we need. And then, the build out costing is pretty high. So I don't have any debt. So what we decided to do instead is to build a dispensary. And our dispensary is the only drive-through dispensary in Lovington. So you can walk in and look at everything, but you can also order online and drive through as well. So we take pride in fast service, as well as you take your time, come in, look, smell, and see all the products, especially our flower. We sell other folks' flower as well, but we do our own pre-rolls. We do, our own packaging as it relates to, 1 gram, a 3.5 gram, 7 gram, all the way up to an ounce. And it's all our product that we grew right behind that dispensary. So we are in love with the fact that Lovington is sun-grown flower, and that's what we're doing.
Dope, and like I said, the ruralness, it forced you to create that product that way, but it's beautiful because it's your own. You don't have to be reliant on everybody else as much. Don't get me wrong, that does create, variety, but you don't have to rely on that solely. Like certain shops, like here in Cruces, there's certain shops that are just retail only, and they rely on everybody else to get their products in there. So it's great that you figured that out and went about a way to do this successfully so far. How many shops are in Lovington right now? I didn't even look before the show.
That's a great question because my background is I'm a CPA by trade, and I was chief financial officer for years. So I view this as the season of this industry. So we had 6 dispensaries. When we first started, there were 2. Now it went up to 6. Now I think it's going to shrink down to 2. Okay. Because in Lovington, it's it's a smaller town, so you can't oversaturate it. There's just not enough business there, and a lot of the businesses are struggling with leasing and paying rent. We are self-funded. We don't have any rent, and we own everything. So we're hoping that we can stand the test of time and be one of the last ones standing. But that area is growing as well. We just got a big Albertsons supermarket built and open.
Good for you guys.
Yeah. And it's right. It's probably a 2 blocks from my dispensary and my farm. So we're hoping to see a lot more traffic coming from other places to that supermarket that'll come right by us. So we're planning on serving them as much as we can.
Dope, man. I'm glad to hear that, and I'm glad that you guys have a drive-through. There's some places in New Mexico that don't allow it. I don't know why. So I'm glad that Lovington does, and that you guys decided to do it, because it's huge. There's certain patients that can't get out of their car. Parents,
right.
The parents that just left the grocery store. One, they have their kids. Two, I don't want to leave my groceries in my vehicle while I'm going to shop anywhere. Something gets spoiled. I just want to go through a drive-through. And so, that's great thinking. And and it being down the street, it's on the way. So
Right.
that's great on you guys. And you guys have been standing the test of time so far, and I hope you guys do in the future as well, because you have some great ideas and a great plan and everything, and I love what you bring to the industry itself, especially when it comes to the wellness, and health and stuff like that. Because some people come to this like, I'm just going to try to get people high. I'm like, well, that's fun, but what about the people that use this to get better? That's how this started, on the backs of the medical cannabis patients. And so we can't forget those. And, people like yourself, make sure that those people get taken care of. So, I thank you. And being so close to Texas, how has the non-smoking ban affected you guys so far? Have you seen an uptick in Texas customers yet? Or are you kind of thinking that's going to take a while?
We haven't checked on since the smoking ban, but we do get a lot of cross-state sales.
Yeah.
And we are hoping that Texas never legalizes it for that reason. That's the selfish part of us.
Yeah. The business part of me is the same way, but the patient and advocate side of me is like, no, they need to. So it's a constant fight with myself too as well. So I get you.
Now they do have medical in Texas.
Yeah.
So I'm not totally selfish, but as it relates to our rec segment, we don't care if they legalize that or not. So we'll hopefully continue down that path. But we do get a good percentage, depending on what's going on. Mm-hmm. When people are coming through Lovington, they've got, the fair there, and they've got a rodeo, and those kind of events really spike our business. So one of the things we were hoping to get started, and we may do it next year, we have a lot of warehouse space that isn't built out yet. And you and I spoke initially. I was trying to find out what kind of celebration was happening for 420. You saved me from purchasing from somebody that was trying to scam some folks, but we are hoping to have one ourselves in this time next year, and bring some food trucks in, and so we'll need your help on publicizing that. We've got a 20,000 square foot warehouse that we can do all that indoors, and we're looking forward to getting some traction with that very soon.
Dope, and I'd love to help. And actually, I've been wanting to hit that part of the state. I want to hit up Jaw, Lovington, New Mexico, and stuff like that. And I've never checked that state out ever. I've never even been to that part of the state. So that's one place that I do want to check out to kind of see how it is. I want to go, see Gray Moon, those folks over in Jaw, and go check you guys out as well too. And so maybe I'll try to make it next year when you do that, and kind of make it like a whole thing for the 420 week of that. The Eastern New Mexico travel.
There we go. We can have your show out there.
That's actually not a bad idea. What do you think, Gino?
Well, we can take a trip up there.
Take a trip to Lovington?
I've got an ex somewhere up there. That would be fun.
What we could do is we can have an episode there, and then we'll record next week's over in Jaw, just down the road.
I find out what Jaw looks like.
Yeah, we'll go look at Jaw, see how that looks.
Yeah.
So that's a great idea. Thank you for that. And I think we'll talk, I'm sure, and we'll figure it out and get the logistics. So that sounds like a great idea. I'd love to do that. I love taking the show on the road and doing it in different locations and showing off.
We've done it a couple of times.
Yeah, we have. So thank you for that. I'd love to. And good luck on the venture for that and everything. I can't wait to see what you guys bring in the future and all that, and what you do. I hope to see a cocktail bar of some sort from you here in the near future or something.
Well, once you see our property, you'll see that we've got the expansive ability anyway to do all of the above, and that's the reason we selected it. So there's a lot more to come. So we'll be moving in that direction, in multiple directions very soon. Very soon.
Dope. Well, I'm glad to hear that. And, you sound very business savvy, so I'm sure you're going to, make the right moves. I mean, being you said you're CPA as well. And so, you're a smart man. So I'm sure you're making, and, you already have plans and stuff. So I look forward to seeing what you come up with and, where it leads and all that. So welcome to the New Mexico cannabis industry.
Thank you.
Of course. Well, with that being said, we're going to move on to the next topic. But before I do, is there anything else you want to talk about or bring up?
No, just be as many of your followers as we can get in touch with to try out our flower and our product and our service level as it relates to Loving Bud. We would appreciate that as much as possible. We're all in this to help our customer base and our patients, but we also have to make money doing it. So as much of that as we can get out and spread out, so everybody knows who Loving Bud is, that would be awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. And where can people find you in real life and online if they want to check out what you guys got going on?
So we've got a website, and if you're a dispensary looking for our flower, you can go there. And if you're a consumer looking for our retail outlet, it's the same website. It's lovingbudnm for New Mexico.com. It's real easy to get to, shows everything. And if you need to find us, we're on Weed Maps as well. And obviously we're on Google.
Awesome. And what's the address?
609 Tatum Highway, 609 Tatum Highway, 88260 is the zip code.
Awesome. And so I have a lot of viewers that actually watch from Texas. So some may get curious and, be going through. So that's the reason why I make sure to, especially when I got my Eastern New Mexico people.
Yeah, well, for the Texas viewers, you don't have to go to Hobbs to get to us. So you can go directly from, I think I used to fly into Lubbock when I first started the business, and we would be, I can't remember the highway, it might be 89 or 84 or something, but we're the closest one to Lubbock.
Okay, dope. So closest dispensary to Lubbock. So check them out. Especially my Texas viewers who are over there, because I know some do watch because I cover both areas because I'm so close that it just makes sense. And El Paso's right there, and a lot of those people work in the cannabis industry and have been helping us for years. So it's the least I can do is to make sure that that they're taken care of too at the same time. So I thank you so much for this conversation. But we're gonna move on to the next topic and everything. I know we spent a little time on this, but you had such great and interesting stuff to share that I wanted to expand on it. So thank you so much for sharing all that with me, and I wish you nothing but luck, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity to be on there.
Of course, I appreciate it. Well, we're going to move on to this next topic, and I love having you, on here for this one too, because this one is about a study, and you're about health and wellness too, so I'm sure you'll take some interest in this. Now, the study just came out yesterday, Tuesday. Right now, it's Wednesday at the time of filming. We're live too, but yesterday the study came out. It came from the UK, so this wasn't an American study or somewhere. This did come from the UK, so keep that in mind. And what it does is it says that cannabis shrinks your brain. Now, I know what you guys are thinking. It's just making your all-around brain shrink, but that's not what this study says. That's what the headlines want you to make you think, but let's break the study down. I read it for you guys, so you don't have to. I didn't read every single word, but I went through it and, and got the main information. I didn't just go through the article. So, what they're saying is cannabis will shrink your brain. What they did is they took studies from 100 different studies and 72,000 different people. So they didn't have active people run through their facility or anything like this. They just took regular studies that have been submitted and they went off the information from there.
So it's the study, the conclusion they got was from different studies?
Yeah, it's a meta-analysis is what it's called. So it's a meta-analysis, and that's what it's called when they do that, when they don't have like the test subjects there. So they did that. And they went through a bunch of, analysis stuff, they did a bunch of math. And of course, they even used Google Translate for when these studies were in English, which worries the shit out of me. I'm not even sure if some of the stuff was translated correctly. And I don't know how many of those studies weren't in English. So there is a portion of these that were translated using AI. And so you can, grain of salt if you want, if the translations, whatever, but numbers are universal. So if they went off of just numbers and equations, then that would make sense to, how they didn't really need it. But obviously there was words because it's a study. Now, what this study says is that it does shrink your brain, but it doesn't say it shrinks your all-around brain. what it says it shrinks, and I'm not sure if I'm going to say this right. I don't know if you know the area of the brain. It's the amygdala is the area that it shrinks. And what this area is responsible for is, I believe, like your emotions and feelings and stuff like that and how you feel. And it's a very small part of your brain. It's not a very big part of your brain to start out with. So the area that they're saying is shrinking is small to start out with. And it's not really saying that it's causing issues. It's just saying that it's shrinking it. Now, this is, again, basing it off of pretty much just going off of what people told them and, years of other research. So we can only think and guess. Now, the other thing, and I hate this about most studies, they only studied THC. They did mention CBD later, and that could be a reason why they're not seeing as much issues, because they studied this alongside of tobacco. They found tobacco affects the same area of the brain and more, and significantly more, which we all have known for many years. But they don't know why cannabis doesn't have the same effects. And they mentioned cannabis. I was like, well, or CBD. I'm like, well, why didn't you study that? Like if that was such a thing. So one thing that bothers me is they only study one compound, and that's THC, when cannabis has many, many other compounds. So here is their conclusion verbatim, and I'm going to read it to you guys. It says, cannabis use appears to be associated with smaller volume of the amygdala. Tobacco use appears to be associated with smaller amygdala, insula, pallidum, and total gray matter volume. So that's what they're concluding as, with the study and everything. And Gino,
Amygdala.
Oh, amygdala. Oh, okay, it's cool.
I tried to catch it before you said it.
Yeah, cool. So far on this, what's your thoughts on this, JJ? I mean, I got a couple more things in the study I want to talk about, but so far, what's your thoughts on this?
Well, I was trying to do some research while you mentioned it, and I just think that if for them to release a study with such a small amount of research is a little unhinged, in my opinion. I don't even know what that part of the brain is responsible for, and why did they target THC only? There's a lot of questions I would ask related to the study itself. Are they just trying to throw rocks here, or are they trying to find out, is there a health hazard with the cannabis plant?
Yeah.
I don't know where they're going with it, I guess.
I don't either, because they even have a quote here, and it's an interesting one from the study. It says, brain volume changes could also be attributed to harms of combustion or smoking in general, not just the tobacco or the cannabis, but the act of combustion and smoking. Combustion can cause high concentrations of reactive oxygen species, ROS, which causes oxidative stress and inflammation with an increase of pro-inflammatory cytokines. God, there's some words in here.
Words are hard.
Yeah, cytokine. Yeah, especially when it comes to medical terms. Cytokinesis leading to neuronal cell death. So meaning that it's going to kill your brain cells essentially. So we've known that for a long time, and that's why I said that eventually I think that cannabis smoking is going to be there, but it's not going to be the main way that people consume cannabis, because of the fact that smoking in general just isn't good for you.
Well, I have a problem with this, not just because they're calling it a study, but it's not really a study. It's more of an analysis.
Yeah.
Because what you're doing is you're taking an analysis of previous studies and then trusting or hoping that their studies were properly done, that they were not biased in any way, that some of the things that they were doing, like, because one of those studies could have 20 people in it.
Yeah.
And all they did was, just do smoking.
Yeah.
In general, just like you said, combustion in general, and not do anything else, because you don't know what any of those studies contained, or even if their methods were properly done to go ahead and get those. And most of these, as far as an analysis goes, because I'm not calling it a study, Chad. As far as the analysis goes, it's like one of the first things I learned in my stats class in college. It's like if you're going to have a statistical study, if you're going to have a study that has to, or some sort of stats or anything that you're coming up with that, the first thing is, what do you want it to say? And that's what you're getting at. Like, what was the point? And then you just kind of focus it to what you want to say, and you bring up those things. It's a lot of way that they do a lot of these things in these different studies and analyses of different things for not just cannabis, but a lot of medical stuff and a lot of other stuff that, they're focusing on getting the answer that they want, not necessarily doing the study properly to get the correct answer, or what science says the answer is.
Yeah, because
Sorry, I went serious for
no, and it was a great point. I shouldn't call it a study. It is an analysis.
It's an analysis.
They studied it, but at the same time, they didn't have actual participants that they found themselves studied, examined, and had them contact them. This, like you said, we don't know if it was done right, who funded it, and to be honest, cannabis changes all the time.
I didn't even get into the funding part of some of those things. So.
Oh yeah, I think I have some of the funding information on here too, if people are curious about that. Because most of this was funded through grants and the UK government. And so that's one thing that is very important when it comes to, studies or analysis is you want to know who funds it. And this is showing that, they did get a lot of grants and they did get a lot of funding from the government. Now, I don't know the UK government as well as I know my own. So I don't know if those areas of the government are, corrupt in a sense against cannabis or, they're looking for it. So I don't know. But I do know that that's where a lot of the funding for this came from. To be honest, I kind of feel this is like kind of a BS article. Okay, let me rephrase that. This isn't a bullshit article. It's a bullshit way to analyze information. And I think it's very misleading.
Yeah.
And that's where the bullshit comes from, is there's a lot of misleading information on this. And JJ, I mean, what are your thoughts, on that so far?
Well, I mean, as I was doing a bit of research, they talk about it's an association, not proof of direct damage, right?
Yeah.
And some of the other co-founder causes they list is tobacco, alcohol, sleep deprivation, anxiety, depression, prior cognitive baseline, age. It does list frequency of potency of THC, age when started. I mean, there's so many variables out there. How do you zero in on one?
Yeah, and one compound.
Yeah.
It's exactly 100%. Thank you for that. That's a great analysis on your own with that. Is just there's so many questions that we have of this study with no answers and no answers in sight really, in the future for it, that why would I want to trust it? I don't know if I can trust this. Like, I'm going to keep it in mind. Smoking isn't good. And that's what confirmed for me is smoking anything isn't good for you. And I'm like, okay, I can agree with that. But there's many other factors that go into play when it comes to your brain. I mean, holding your breath too long can affect your brain, stuff like that. There's many factors, genetic defects, medical defects. I mean, I have medical issues that were brought on from my time in Iraq. Just being there and exposed to certain things. I have a lot of gut issues because of that. And a lot of us veterans do, in general. And so, that's a factor that may be in play that we don't know about with certain people. And to be honest, I don't know where these people are from in the study. Certain places they could have had whatever wrong in that particular area where that person's from. And that could have led to that too. So, it could have cannabis made it worse. Maybe, I don't know, but we don't know that.
Well, I can tell you this, that, I know enough about the people that did the study to know that they're just trying to get a reaction out of the headline.
Yeah, exactly.
Cannabis shrinks your brain. If you want to get somebody's attention, either something's going to go wrong with your brain or you're... Wait a minute, we're on the internet, right?
Yeah, we're on there. You can say dick.
Okay, yeah, so I was going to say, they catch your attention by saying there's something's going to be wrong with your brain or your head or your dick. And then they go, whoa!
Yeah. Oh, not the dick. Yeah. I think it was Idiocracy towards the end that they spent a lot of their time and the last smart people on earth perfecting, I think, shampoo and boner pills. Then that was like
priorities.
Joke. Yeah, priorities. The priorities were, looking good and having a boner, and versus, health and all that. So it kind of reminds me of that same sense. So to me, this is just going to get a lot of attention, like that one study we talked about a couple of weeks ago got. And then we all kind of we're going to say it's bullshit because it was the same thing. It was a meta-analysis of a bunch of data from 60 years or 50 years or something like that. And I'm like, oh God, cannabis was totally different, way back then. Just even 15 years ago, cannabis is totally different, and it's ever changing, and we're ever selective breeding things that, to be honest, THC is going to get lower in the future, guys. I don't know what to tell you, because we created more issues with high THC than anything, because THC isn't the only thing in cannabis that gives you the effects that you like and get. There's many other compounds. You have the Tropicana sulfur, the volatile sulfurs, you have the terpenes, you have the other, compounds. I mean, THCV is barely explored these days. CBN, people are barely discovering the wonders of CBN. Actually, someone messaged me the other day, said, Chad, I didn't realize this. CBN is indica. And I was like, that's essentially it, because the sativa indica don't really mean anything. I was like, that's pretty much it. When something makes you sleepy when it comes to cannabis, it's just high in CBN. Has nothing to do with sativa or indica in that sense. They just let the plant grow a little bit older.
What you've been messing with to get all the different strains for your cannabis over the many years that a lot of people have been doing this, and getting the different flavors and getting the different potencies and everything else, it's like sometimes you're not messing with the THC, you're actually messing with the other compounds that are involved with that. So it could be something else that you raised or lowered that's having that effect, but that everything was just focused on the THC.
It's like fixing an issue but creating another problem.
Yeah, it's like realizing that something's wrong with your car, and you keep changing the tires, but then it's your axle or it's your shock or something like that. It's like you're messing with all these things to go ahead and give you the same effect, but it's not exactly what's causing the issue. I don't even want to say that, because it sounds like it's a problem, that cannabis is causing a problem, but it's doing all these other things that affect in a way where you're focused on that one compound, and it's not really that which is actually changing. Because like you said, they're discovering new compounds with this all the time.
Yeah, I mean, all the time. I mean, there's compounds in cannabis we don't know about yet.
Of all of the drugs that are out there, from cannabis to, like heroin and all the Oxycontins, all that stuff like that, the least studied one seems to be cannabis, because we seem to know everything else about all those other drugs that there still can get a prescription for, but we don't know anything about the cannabis because they haven't done the studies, because it's so bad.
Even when you go to get like an operation, they don't know how that actually works. Like when you sign the paper, it clearly states that there's a chance you might not wake up. From anesthesia. Scientists actually don't know exactly how and why it works. They just know it works, and at certain dosages and certain weights, it does this to people. It makes them go to sleep. You don't feel pain. Like that's kind of the gist of it. That they don't really know exactly how. So that scares the shit out of me. And
have you ever been?
Huh?
Have you ever?
Oh yeah, plenty of times. Yeah. But I remember being older, having a procedure. I remember reading it thoroughly, and I was like, "Oh wow, this is alarming." I was like, "That's scary." So I mean, JJ, I'm sure you've been under a few times. What is your thought process when it comes to that? Because I mean, when I compare it to something like that, it's like, oh yeah, that's way like, why do we allow that?
Oh, I read the same thing you did. I blew both Achilles tendons after college.
Oh man!
Had to go under the knife to get them reattached, and it was really cool that I counted back to 10 and only got to 7, and then I woke up and it was all done.
Yeah. But
reading the liabilities that could present themselves, it is scary. When my first son was born, my wife had the spinal tap done, and all of the issues associated with that. And there's just so many drugs, I'll just call them, because I don't consider cannabis a drug. I consider it a plant. But there's so many pharmaceutical drugs out there that have such negative impact on your health. And you're right, they're rolling the dice with you. Because they don't know how you're going to respond. They don't, and that's why they don't want you to eat for 24 hours or 12 hours, whatever it is, because you may go into convulsions and throw up and die.
And even these days, they don't want you to use cannabis 24 hours before using it either, because it interacts with anesthesia and it doesn't work all the way.
What about Tylenol or Benadryl?
Yeah. Last time I did, I let them know medical cannabis, and they're like, oh, well, make sure 24 hours before you don't use. Afterwards, all you want. But before, make sure 24 hours before you don't, because it will interact with the anesthesia. And I was like, well, I don't want that shit.
I just realized something right now when I was thinking about it. As far as agriculture and plants go, JJ, because it is a plant, we know more about green chili in New Mexico than we know about cannabis. Seriously.
We do. We have a
There's
whole
studies. There's a whole department at NMSU for this whole
you
thing.
can see the
plant.
chili farm from the highway. Yeah.
Hey, I used to be in the food business, and when it was hatch chili season, we were bringing all that into the distributorship that I was working for, and everybody was buying that stuff before we even got it. Love hatch chilies.
Yeah. And we know more about how chili works and how to grow it, how to modify it, how to do all that than we do about how cannabis works.
Yeah.
To circle back though, the point you were making, Chad, on THC, I think you and I had a previous conversation on this. We got to figure out how we can educate our people on, because I mean, I'm trying to sell my wholesale right now, and that's the first thing out of the retailer's mouth is, what's the THC percentage? And some of them are educated enough to say, I get it, that there's other compounds that relate to this, but my customer base, that's the first question out of their mouth. So we've got to figure out how to grow our industry and educate them to understand that that's just one of many. And we're shooting ourselves in the foot trying to get those elevated percentages, but it may not be the best product, even if it's at 30%, which we just finally hit.
Yeah. Usually when I get something 30%, every now and then I'll get, a unicorn, but usually it's dry, it doesn't taste great. It doesn't even really feel like it does medicate me like you feel it should, being at 30%. But give me something 20, 60% sometimes. Oh man, it kicks my ass. And I'm like, what was that? Oh man, that tasted good. And I can't even open my eyes. That was great. So yeah, we're missing a lot is what I'm saying. And the alcohol industry went through this as well. They went from, trying to have the highest alcohol percentages, and then they realized, actually, we need to bring that down and add flavor. The wine industry is a really good example. They were trying to get really high alcohol, ABVs, but then they realized, it's actually better when you have flavor in there and notes, and doesn't have to be high alcohol, but as long as it has that flavor, people will like it. And sure as shit, wine mom is a thing for a reason.
Whiskey snobs.
Yeah, exactly. Whiskey snobs the same way. That's a total different flavor.
Yeah,
but the same way. Same thing. It's more about the flavor.
Used to see the old cowboy movies when they poured a shot of whiskey, and it looked like they were going to go into convulsions to take the shot. Now, I mean, you have sipping whiskeys that they're a lot smoother. They taste good. It's just evolved, and cannabis has got to be the same way. We've got to get the THC out of the forefront and promote the other compounds.
I agree. And, it starts at education. I've told you about the pamphlet before, and I've talked about it on the show a few times. And that's one way that we're going to do it is educating the customer that way, making sure that the bud tenders are educated too. Don't get me wrong. You have the customers that walk in, they don't give a shit. They just want to get whatever they want and leave. But that's not majority of the customer. The majority of the customer, it's honestly mixed. I don't think there is a majority or whatever. I think there's a good portion of people that want to learn about cannabis. There's a good portion of people that don't know anything about cannabis, but they're willing to learn. And then, of course, you have the percentage of people that don't give a fuck. They don't give a shit what it is. They just want the weed. And then you have the people that don't know anything about cannabis, and they still don't care. So you have these different categories, and there's other categories in between that too. But there's enough for us to do work somewhere. And the people that do want to learn, they're usually the ones that teach their friends around them. So eventually they will get to that customer that doesn't give a shit. But it starts with us doing our due diligence to make sure that the customer knows exactly what's going on whenever, we're in the store and everything. I hit this right here and it caused, there we go. Yeah. And whenever they're in the store and they're trying to buy something from us, because it's up to us to tell them what's good. And don't get me wrong, we can't tell them what they want, but if they're asking, we might as well tell them what's good. It's up to them to buy it. And who knows, maybe on the 10th visit, they'll get a wild hair up their ass and, you'll be able to educate the shit out of them and blow their mind, but Don't ever give up is what I'm trying to tell people, is just don't stop trying. The moment you stop trying is a moment that we get stuck in this little hallway where we're just looking at, just THC. Yeah. There's many other doors in that hallway that we could be going through. And we just decide to just keep going down the same hole.
Well, you brought up the wine mom. You know, if somebody's looking for a good wine, they're going to have a preference. They're going to have a taste.
Yeah.
And the sommelier is the one that's going to go, well, do you like this or try this because this has this and that? And I think you're right. I think it starts, at least in the retail business, it starts with the bud tenders.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. But that's all I had for that one. Do you guys have anything else before we move on to our very, very last topic? I know this episode got a little long, but one more topic.
Okay, I'll edit later. I don't have any more jokes. So.
Okay. What about you, JJ? Got anything?
I'm good.
Right.
Thank you.
Cool. I appreciate you sticking around with us too as well. But our last topic today, guys, I'm going to try to keep this one quick because I know this episode's been a little bit longer, and I have been keeping you guys updated on the Texas stuff that's going on. So the last episode or the episode before, I told you guys that the ban went into effect in Texas for the smokables and stuff like that. And JJ and I briefly, mentioned it and everything, talking about, customer base and stuff like that. However, it looks like the advocates in Texas, and I will give the advocates in Texas a lot of credit. They are fucking amazing. Like they do way more than what we've done here in New Mexico advocacy wise. And I've been an advocate this whole time. It's just, I'm one of few people that actually do shit. But in Texas, there's a lot. Like when I went there to the legislature and I met all those advocates, I was just blown away how passionate they are, how organized they are, and how on the government's ass they were and are. Like it just blew my mind. They defeated the legislature 3 times. Like we've never even done that here in New Mexico. And that's the Texas legislature. That's not just like any legislature, in the state, in the nation. That's the Texas one. That's a hard legislature to beat. It helped that they had the governor backing. The governor wanted regulation, not, banning it and stuff. So that helped a lot, but they're doing work. So they did file a lawsuit, the advocates and the businesses in Texas. And this lawsuit is stating that the overseeing agency that made the rule to ban the smokables overstepped their authority because the state legislature says THC is capped at 0.3% THC, no THCA or THCV or anything like that. So they're challenging that they can't make this rule because in the legislature, in the law, it states that, and they're changing or trying to change the law when they don't have that authority, which is a decent argument, to be honest. I'll give them that. That is actually a very good argument, and we'll see if it holds up in court. But it's Texas, so we'll see. Yeah, and I got curious, and there was another article when I was looking up this story, and it was talking about an El Paso shop owner. And to be honest, I didn't realize that El Paso had a lot of like the Texas, hemp style shops, but I guess there was. And he said he's going to lose about 90% of his customer base because of this, and actually a lot of his product is having to come off of the floor because of this ban. And I was thinking about, I was like, that's interesting. You have El Paso right next to Sunland Park in New Mexico, but people still chose to stick in Texas and get those products. Could it be that we just didn't offer a low percentage of a THC product and they found it there? Maybe, I don't know. But it blew my mind. I was like, there's a lot more people that were utilizing that than I realized. And even in an area like in El Paso that they don't have to, you know what I mean? And this is affecting local businesses who otherwise weren't doing anything wrong other than going with what the federal law and the state law said. Another thing that they're challenging too, and they're not even challenging like the age gating. They're all for age gating, and I am too. We should be making sure minors aren't getting cannabis or of any sort. They're arguing that the fact that the increase of the licenses is another issue that they overstepped too, because it went from $258 to $10,000 per facility. Yeah, like ridiculous amounts. Now here in New Mexico, we're like, okay, whatever, but that's kind of always been our thing. It was never a couple $100s to get your license here in New Mexico. It's always been a couple thousand to $100,000 something dollars when it was medical. And then also on top of that, for retail registration, it went from $155 to $5,000. So you're looking at over $15,000, just to get set up with one facility, one place kind of thing.
And then they just took 90% of your stock out of it. Exactly.
And then they take majority of what you were selling to make all of that up. So the lawsuit makes sense. Will it work? I don't know. I knew that this was coming. It just wasn't officially introduced. I didn't know what was in it, and now we know. So best of luck to you guys. That's the advocate side speaking for me, of course, not the Business New Mexico side. The Business New Mexico side is like, of course, like, it fails, please fail. But the patient side, I really do hope that you guys prevail, because not only is it the medical cannabis patients suffering in Texas, it's the veterans, my fellow veterans who either are from Texas, moved to Texas, whatever, they're in Texas. Those are the ones that I really feel for when it comes to changes like this, because they're the ones who actually suffer when this happens, not the government, not the overseeing people. So that's my spiel and everything. And with that being said, what do you guys what are your thoughts on this? And I'll start with JJ first.
Well, I just wasn't very well read on this at all, and so I don't want to give an opinion without thinking through it.
Yeah.
But it just seems like they're just putting up obstacles, and it's just a super conservative state, and I think we should expect that. And I think the advocates are doing what they're supposed to be doing. Is you got to battle it, because that's really all it is. And for it to be a conservative state, which they claim they are trying to not stomp on people's rights, that seems to be the opposite effect.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm with you on that. And that seems like the route they've been going the whole time. And to be honest, it was the alcohol lobby that funded a lot of the anti-cannabis stuff, the past legislative session in Texas. And I'm not surprised that, this came out this way, because the alcohol lobby, I'm sure, was behind stuff like this as well, too, because just like tobacco, the alcohol industry is bleeding right now because of a few things. It's not just because of cannabis. It's just for the fact that people are taking their health a little bit more serious. The younger generation is too as well. They're not drinking. They're not smoking tobacco. They're vaping. But, they're not like actively combusting, plant matter. And so I think those key factors are leading to that loss for them. And the shitty part for them is they don't know how to shift or pivot. Now, don't get me wrong. Some alcohol companies are getting smart, and they're moving to cannabis, and it's helping them, especially the microbrews in certain states. They're starting to find out, okay, I can do this. Okay. And it's easier for them to pivot than it is like a bigger one. Don't get me wrong. They have more money, but to change a whole facility out, that costs them a lot of money, and they got to go to their, investors and stuff. So I can see why the alcohol is fighting so hard, and why they're playing dirty tricks and tactics and going routes like this. It's because it's cutting into their funds. But why fight us? Just join us. You know what I mean? Like, it would be so much better and easier if we could work together, because I do like red beer. I love that flavor and everything that beer offers, but I don't like the alcohol that's in it. So if we can work together to give me something off the line that's a beer with cannabis in it only and no alcohol, that would be great. But instead, we're running into stuff like this. We could be like this. Instead, it's like this. And I hate it.
Well, I'm not surprised that there were shops in El Paso, and that some people would prefer to go to those shops instead of crossing the state line. Probably one reason would be law enforcement.
That's fair.
I'm not saying that they're out there. They're waiting for you. But if you can stay on this side of the state line and drink something that's legal in your state, just go ahead and go for that if you're going to get the help that you need.
Yeah.
The only thing that really scares me about that is that, and I've noticed it recently, with not just with cannabis, but with other things, and you've seen it, the effects of it nationally in other things like alcohol and tobacco, that these groups, these lobbyists that are lobbying against that, a lot of them are national groups that are going to every state. They're doing the same thing in all the other states to try and go ahead. In fact, they're probably here in New Mexico trying to convince people to go ahead and get rid of retail in the first place, and get rid of everything because it's so evil, Yeah. And I think if you think of the successors of the tobacco industry, the lobbyists that lobbied against that, and there are organizations. There are great organizations. Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Great organization. They had a really good thing, but as a national thing, they're going up against, every single town and every single state in there. And I bring it up because those people that are lobbying in Texas it's probably a national organization based out of somewhere in a completely different state that's just trying to do that. We see that a lot here in New Mexico. A lot of other organizations coming here to try and affect the laws and how we do things and give suggestions. Everything from education. Everytown USA with the gun rights thing and all that. So watch out for those organizations because they're really strong.
Yeah, one of them is Smart Approach to Marijuana.
So, yeah.
That's one of them, and I think they're behind the possible reversal in Arizona that they're trying to do. And luckily here in New Mexico, we don't have voter ballot initiatives. Don't get me wrong, it sucks, but it's also good at the same time because we don't run into organizations like that able to put something on a petition and then the voters go and vote on it and then it change a law. Here we have to go through the legislature and we have no other choice. Does it work to our benefit sometimes? Yes, but it also kicks us in the ass sometimes too. But I will say voter ballot initiatives are a little bit more tricky because it's harder to change that law than it is to change a law that was made through the legislature. Because the legislature, you have every year opportunity to change that law. When a voter ballot initiative, you have to go through that same process again to get it changed.
Change it, tweak it like we do here.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
You're kind of changing things, tweaking things as you go along with what we have. But yeah, I'm just saying that sometimes a lot of those organizations are very well organized in what they do, and it's basically just using scare tactics or anything else like that.
Reefer madness.
Yeah, exactly. Is the one thing that I keep in mind whenever I'm talking to somebody about what we do here and what I'm learning overall.
Yeah.
Because as JJ, as a non-consumer, I stopped using words like pot, cannabis, weed. I mean, marijuana, all that other stuff. And when I talk about cannabis with somebody, I'm talking about that.
Yeah.
But you talk Sam, against marijuana.
Marijuana's in the name.
You can tell exactly what they're against in the way that they use their language.
Yeah, 100%.
They don't talk against cannabis. They talk against weed.
Yeah.
They talk against pot. They talk about
those stoners.
They talk about the marijuana. They talk about the devil's lettuce.
Yeah, exactly.
All that stuff.
You got to demonize it. You got to demonize it.
100%. And it's work. It's a very successful tactic, and it's an unfortunate tactic that it works, and hopefully our advocates in other states, are fighting against it as well. I don't know. I've seen some of the advocates in Arizona. I haven't really met any, but hopefully they're fighting against, the push to, make cannabis illegal again over there, whatever the hell's going on with that.
I just saw something come out yesterday. So they're still trying to do it here in Arizona as well.
Yeah. So that's unfortunate. And I hope it doesn't pass, because that's just, it doesn't make sense to me, man. We have all these other issues and you guys are worried about cannabis. That has never been a problem. The only problem was the legal status of it. That was the only problem cannabis really ever had was the legal status.
Once again, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse here. Where are the studies that have there been any problems since legalization, since retail came up? Are there higher crime statistics? Are there higher?
It's opposite. All the studies say it's opposite.
And it's going down. And so what is a problem that they're trying to solve by getting rid of this other than you don't like it?
Yeah, that's it. They just don't like it.
Exactly.
So, but anyway, that's all I had for that. JJ, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I don't think it's about liking it. I think it's about what we all talk about. It's money. And if you can eliminate cannabis and it spikes the alcohol business or the tobacco business, that's what they want. They've been running roughshod over us for years, and they're not ready to let that go.
100%. They have been. So hopefully we can keep the fight going, and it's slowly changing. It just sucks while we're in the middle of the fight, but I think at the end of the day, when it finally does, it'll be all worth it, and we can all have a cannabis drink together on it.
There we go.
So, but JJ, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a great conversation. Such great insights. I wish you nothing but luck, man. I really do hope to see, a cocktail bar from you coming up at some time soon. That'd be great to see in general, just in cannabis. But I thank you so much. And is there anything else you want to share before we end for the day?
Cocktail bar is going to happen, at least the beverage itself, but don't forget about our flower and all the other products that we sell out of Loving Bud right now. So look for us on wholesale and retail. We are here and here to stay. So partner with us and enjoy our products.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, JJ. And I look forward to, checking out your shop sometime in the future, and especially with that event that you might have next year. And I wish you nothing but luck, brother. And I, look forward to keeping in contact with you.
All right. Appreciate it, Jed.
You too, man. See ya. All right, everybody. I'll see you next week for another episode of #Grassy Logic. I'll see y'all. Shoots.